Okay, so I'm ICT Strategy Lead at Leicester City Council. I primarily work on the BSF programme, and Rich has talked to you a little bit already about the work that we've done around DigiLit Leicester in that context, really wanting to support the schools workforce in terms of their professional development, specifically looking at how they use technology to support learning and community development, but really more broadly looking at looking at how to support them moving forward with their practice as a whole. And we've obviously been really well supported in that by how much excellent practice is already going on in the city and how staff have been able to link the use of technology to that. I'm here today in the context of this panel to talk about the permission that Leicester City Council has given to staff at community and voluntary controlled schools across the city, and that's 83 of the schools that we've got, the majority of the schools in the city. And really to talk a little bit about why we've given that permission and what the implications of that mean. I'm obviously going to kind of expand around that area in the policy workshops that I'll be running today, and I look forward to seeing more some of you in there later. But the first question is, why have we done this? And we haven't done this because everybody else is doing this at the moment. We're very proud to be the first local authority in the UK, if not further afield, who have given permission to a specific sector of the workforce that we employ, so that's school employees, blanket permission to openly licence their educational resources. The reason that we've done that is there's a lot of different reasons that we've done that. The first thing is around empowering schools and school staff. So the situation of the legal position of employees working for anyone, not just school staff, but me as an employee working in any sector, in relation to the ownership of copyright and intellectual property around the things that I create, is pretty universal. I, as an employee, don't have automatically rights to do what I would like to do with the things that I create within the line of my work. And slightly more than that, I don't even enjoy moral rights necessarily to have my name attached to the work that I'm doing in the context of my employment. So what we've done is we've recognised that. We've thought that what we would really like to do is, as well as supporting schools in understanding and making use of all the open education resources that are out there, we really want to support schools in putting out their own open educational resources and sharing the great work that they are doing in order to promote themselves and their schools and in order to benefit other people. Legally, the position for all employers would be that you have to go and ask your employer, can I do this? So what we've provided with that blanket permission is a shortcut through that, and what we've said is if it's an educational resource, yes, you can. Put an open licence on it, we give you permission to do that. And actually, in terms of the guidance that we've produced, we were saying, please do go ahead and do that. And we're really wanting to support and encourage staff to do that. So in terms of other benefits, obviously, it's a really brilliant opportunity, I think, for schools to look at how they are publicly perceived, how their presence is online, how their online identity as an organisation is. And sharing open resources can support and enhance their reputation and their identities. Obviously, Leicester City Council is committed to public value. That means that, you know, we acknowledge the fact that the work that we all do is publicly funded from the public purse, and we want to get as much benefit out of that for as many people as possible. Open licensing provides a really, really great way of getting those resources and that work out there and maximising the opportunities and the likelihood of that work being reused, of benefiting many more people than it was originally intended to do in terms of specific staff practice or specific school practice. Obviously, linked to that, we're very firmly interested in equality of access for learning of all, and open educational licensing can really support people to be able to access things that they otherwise wouldn't. Marique talked about MOOCs earlier on, massive open online courses, which allow anybody to take courses of study for free with an internet connection. So the potential to open up things to people that wouldn't have that opportunity there is a really, really important driver. Understanding and modelling copyright, I think, is really, really important for schools and for staff members. We are professionals. We work in the professional sphere. Many staff, I know, are nervous around issues of copyright, and they're not necessarily that confident about the licensing restrictions that they have in their schools already and what they permit them to do and what they don't permit them to do. Now, we've outlined and covered some of that in the guidance document, so that's a handy way for your staff to be able to review it. But open licensing really takes the weight off a lot of those concerns and issues, because it very clearly indicates by the type of license that you use, how you can use it and what you need to do. And in the kind of most flexible license, what that is you can use it how you like, you can remix it, you can copy it, you can change it, you can pass it on. All you need to do is acknowledge who created it originally. So it's very important for staff standing in front of pupils to, I think, to be able to model good practice, and putting in, for example, images that you may not have copyright to do into presentations obviously really closes down how educators can share and pass that work around. As Bjorn showed, it's very, very easy to find high quality resources that can be substituted for resources of unknown copyright. So there's a huge amount that we can do there. And obviously one of the other things that open licensing can do is support collaborative and open practice. I would love for us as a city to be moving into, for example, creating open course books collaboratively across our schools for our students. I would love to see that kind of activity going on. In the immediate future, there's nothing stopping anybody in the city from taking open licence resources that have been produced by other staff members and making them fit for purpose for their own staff under the terms of the licensing agreement, and building on the work that your peers have done and have contributed. And also, obviously, in turn, you contributing that back to your community. In terms of the permission, educational resources is a broad definition. Obviously, we're not trying to infringe on anything that would go against the protections that are in place for young people. So, for example, the data protection law, we don't want people putting out anything that is going to infringe on those kind of things. But broadly speaking, educational resources covers the whole host of things that you do. It might be data sets, it might be lesson plans, it might be course overviews, it might be revision materials, it might be presentations. Anything that supports learning and learning communities. So included in that, for example, could be model policies. And I know across the city, we've got a really healthy tradition of sharing model policies amongst each other and developing and building on those. They can be openly licensed, so that where they've come from and where they've gone to can be clear to everybody. By openly licensed, we mean, obviously we've talked a little bit about attaching an open licence in some form to that work and along with accreditation. Why do we need the policy? Coming back to that question, we need the policy because otherwise we are asking schools to do things that aren't clearly supported by the law. That's the bottom line, really, in terms of giving schools the permission to do this. But also, we want to use this as an opportunity to really raise confidence levels across the city about copyright, to really help schools promote themselves. So outside of the permission, because we are not the employer for trusts, voluntary aided schools and the academies in the city, of which we have a few, this does impact them, I think, because we work as a city. I think that Leicester can be rightly proud of how close its community is, and especially its education community, and how we do share ideas, thoughts, work across and with each other already. So this isn't an exclusionary policy, and what we really want to do as a council is to really encourage local governing bodies, who are typically the employers at those organisations, into adopting local policies along the same lines. And to support that, we've actually created model policies for both types of schools to adopt at local level, and we'll be looking at those in my workshop later on today. That's the attribution that we're recommending. You'll want, as schools, as school leaders, as governing bodies, to understand why we're recommending that, to have a conversation about whether that's the right way, right path for your school, to really understand what the implications of that are. We've recommended it in line with the EU and the UK government requirements for openly licensing. It's the most open license possible. It gives the most flexibility to other people to take and use things. All it requires is that you accredit the source that you got it from. We're obviously strongly championing that as a license, but practitioners need to consider and reflect as well on the license that they use. You can see there, I've made this as an example in the spirit of the day, what that would look like if it was on my document. So just to wrap up, the key questions for schools around this that you need to be thinking of, that you need to really explore. Do your staff know about open licensing? That's the first question to ask yourself, because as Richard commented, our research with the schools indicated that no, they don't really know about this area, they're not confident in this area. So one, do they know about open licensing? And the guidance can help them and help you support them in understanding what open licensing is. Are all your staff aware of the new permission? So if you are in a community school or in the one voluntary controlled primary school in the city, do all of your staff know that they now have this permission? Because they do. They have this right now. Which is your school's preferred open licence? That's what you need to be thinking about, you know, and weighing that up. And we'll do a little bit about that in my session today. What resources could or should staff be sharing? You will have, as individuals and as schools, enormous amounts of resources already that could be very quickly openly licensed and put out there. You might want to also look at putting in place a new kind of process for openly licensing and supporting staff in openly licensing. And as we say in the guidance, really our plea is that whatever you do introduce to support those staff, you don't make it too onerous, because what we don't want to do is stop people who are already sharing from sharing things. We want to actually support more sharing across the city. And the last question is obviously, how can you support your staff to work openly? There are issues and concerns that staff have that we'll talk about today and that you'll be addressing in your school. How do we deal with those? How do we encourage people and support people effectively? Thank you.